At the assignments on pages 76 and 79 in the textbook. First of all, page 76. Read number 1 for us. Nate.
The Romans called the Mediterranean Sea the Mare Nostrum.
All right, Mare Nostrum. And anybody put what that's translated as? Haley? RC, right. Not RC like an RC Sproul. R, O-U-R-C-S-E-A. Don't want you to get confused about that. I'm sure some of you were, right? No, who's R.C. Sproul? Well, a very important man. Number 2, read that for us, Grace. Okay, but you know what? That's not what the question asked. The question asked what year. Riley.
The city of Rome was founded in the year 753 BC.
That is correct. You gave us the century, not the year. Tell you what, I'll give you half a point because you weren't wrong about the century, but it was the wrong answer. It was to a different question. Any question? 753 BC? All right, everybody speak up nice and loudly so that we can catch your answer on the video. Number 3, read for us. Lexi.
According to legend, Romulus and Remus founded Rome.
That is correct. Because they go together, it's just 1 point for the two of them. Number 4, read that for us. Robbie.
The two main social classes of Rome were the patricians and the plebeians.
Correct. And we'll give you 2 points on that. 1 for each of them. Number 5, Bill.
I didn't have a complete sentence for that one. So
Is that the only one?
No, I didn't notice for this one. I thought it was just that one.
Okay. Well, let's let Jake take it then.
Okay.
The symbol for the thing was the fasces.
The thing?
Yeah.
Is that what you wrote down?
I didn't
The
write
symbol
down,
for the thing?
I just wrote down the symbol was the fasces that I can't say.
All right, that's not a real complete statement, is it? The symbol. Do I know from that what you're talking about? The symbol. You don't tell me what symbol it is. Caden.
The symbol of the king's authority in early Roman society was an imperium, which was an axe called the fasces.
Very good. That's a very complete sentence. You didn't need to have all of that, but Jake needed to have more of it. All right, the fasces is the answer there. So if you did not write any of these in sentences, put NS beside anyone that is not in a sentence. All right, there's 6 points on page 76. Those of you that did not complete 77, go out in the hall, work on that while we continue checking page 79. If you do not do page 79, leave. All right, number 1 on page 79. Riley.
The year that the Roman Republic was founded was 509 BC.
Correct, 509 BC. Number 2, Sophia.
The Senate is the most powerful body within the governmental structure of the Republic.
That is correct. Number 3, Joel.
They have veto power to exercise over unjust acts of patrician officials.
They? Who's they?
The Senate.
No. See, that's the problem when you start with a pronoun. Circle that pronoun. And any other times you started a sentence with a pronoun, circle them. What goes there instead of they, Caden?
Tribunes.
Right. The tribunes had the power of the veto. Number 4, Luke.
So, the Roman law written and placed in the Forum is the law of the 12 tables.
Correct. And number 5, Grace.
The plebeian assembly that gained the power to pass laws is called tribal assembly.
Right, the tribal assembly. Any questions? All right, tally up the total number on both pages and put it at the top and circle it. Nate?
Have you had like they instead of tribunes?
All right, how many times did you have a pronoun instead of the noun?
Just one.
Just once? Just once? All right, we'll let that go then. Don't let it become a habit. Okay, when you have finished calculating the number you have incorrect and circled it, pass it over to Caden, and he will put it on my desk. And Nate, since you're up, would you go get the people around the hall? All right, now we're going to go back to our notes and fill in some of the things that you've already read about in this chapter about the Roman Republic. One of the things you looked at in the chapter was the flow chart that we examined prior to reading this part of the chapter about the early Roman Republic and how it was governed. Now we want to go into the section entitled The Early Roman Republic and looking at the establishment of the Republic. First of all, Etruscans conquered the Latin villages. You can see the Etruscans were in this area, and they came down and conquered the Latin villages. Here is Rome, which was a part of that. And they established a monarchy. But the Latin city of Rome continued to increase. In 509 BC, the king was overthrown and a republic was established. And it had an administration which divided power among consuls, the Senate, and the assemblies, which we'll explain more in detail. First of all, looking at the consuls. There were two consuls elected by the citizens, and each ruled for 1 year. Their responsibility was to supervise the daily affairs of government. This meant they had executive power. That's the executive function of government. Remember, we talked before about the three functions of government. What are they, by the way? We can all say them together. Maybe we'll say them in the same order. What are the three functions of government? Legislative, executive, judicial. All right. Now, no matter what kind of government you have, all three of those functions are going to be a part of your government. It so happens that our founding fathers thought it was important to separate those powers so that the government would not become too powerful. And so we have a separation of the branches of the legislative, executive, and judicial. But even if you only have a monarchy, you only have one person ruling, there are still going to be those functions of executive, legislative, and judicial in any government. And so in this government, which is primarily legislative, as we'll see, there still are executive functions that have to be carried out. And in this case, the consuls carried out that particular executive function. In addition, they commanded the Roman army, which is also the executive function. By the way, just to kind of apply this in our own government, what title is given to the person in the United States government which indicates that he commands the army or military?
Commander-in-Chief.
Commander-in-Chief. Good. And who is the Commander-in-Chief?
The President.
The President. Right. So in this case, it was the two consuls. Thirdly, the consuls served as supreme judges of the land, and that is, of course, the judicial function of government. Okay, any questions about this so far? Yeah, see some of you still writing. I'll pause for a moment. Next we come to the Senate. Senate was the most important and most powerful body, and it was made up of the oldest and wisest men of Rome. And this was the legislative body, the Senate. They're the ones that make the laws, that basically rule over Rome, the Republic. Now, there came into existence what was called the Assembly of Centuries. This was made up of common people. It also was legislative. What could they do? Well, first of all, they voted on legislation, just like a legislature does. They vote on what should become law. They also made declarations of war. This is similar to what body in our government not only votes on legislation but also makes declarations of war. Congress, right. And our Congress is separated into the House of Representatives and the Senate. They just had the Senate initially, but then added this Assembly of Centuries and gave them that power to declare war. Thirdly, they also elected high-ranking government officials. So it looks like the Assembly of Centuries is really gaining quite a bit of power. And this happens over time. You know, they can vote on law, make declarations of war, elect certain high-ranking government officials. All right, what prevents them from taking over what the Senate does, the power of the Senate? Well, the Senate had veto power over the acts of the Assembly of Centuries. So anything that the Assembly of Centuries did, the Senate could say, no, that's not going to be the way it is. Now there's a struggle within the Republic, and the struggle is between the patricians and the plebeians. There are constant wars against enemies in Italy, which necessitated reliance upon the plebeians by the patricians. Because the patricians can't fight these wars on their own. They may have had most of the money, but they need men as well, and that's what was supplied by the plebeians. And so, in order to get the plebeians' support for the wars that the patricians needed to conduct, they allowed the plebeians to have a greater share in the government and society. The concession was to give them what's called the Council of Plebeians. And they could pass resolutions called plebiscites. Now, these were not binding on the patricians. In addition, the council could elect 10 tribunes with veto power over unjust acts of patrician officials. So the council of plebeians could pass laws which were not binding on the patricians, called plebiscites, but they also had 10 tribunes elected from the council which could veto any acts of the Senate.
Not binding on that.
On the patricians. Next, the patricians looked at the way the government was being conducted, and they observed that they had some pretty good laws, but they were concerned that people might misrepresent the law, might make up stuff that wasn't there, and so these plebeians forced the patricians to commit the Roman law to writing. That way everybody could see exactly what the law said. And this, as you know, was called the Law of 12 Tables, which hung in the Roman Forum, which was the center of government. So it was hanging there where everyone could see, so everyone could know what the law was. Now, I'm not going to tell you all of the laws that were part of that 12 tables, but I'll point out a few of them that are of interest to us. First of all, it stated that no person was above the law or beyond the law, meaning that the law applied to everyone. There wasn't anybody who could get away with breaking that, any of those laws. It applied to everyone. That's an important thing, isn't it? And that's not something you generally find in a monarchy, maybe not even in an oligarchy. But in a republic, everyone is supposed to be treated equally. And of course, we have that same perspective here in the United States today. Secondly, there was a law that said that no judicial decision could be made after sundown. Tell me, what would be the purpose of that?
So nobody's drunk.
So they're not drunk when they're passing decisions? All right. You have a certain perspective of Roman patricians. Any other reason you can think of why that law would be in effect? What do you think, Sophia?
So everyone can be involved in anything that's secret.
So it wouldn't be secret, yeah. So that the whole community would know what's going on. So that's a good law, isn't it? So anybody who's judging can't just put somebody on trial when nobody knows about it and convict them. So the community would be aware of the proceedings. Now, the Jewish people also had that same law, that you could not have judicial proceedings at night, so that everyone would be able to see what's going on. Can you think of a time when they violated that law?
When Jesus was brought before the high priest.
Yeah, in the Sanhedrin. That was one of many violations of Jewish law, that they tried Jesus at night. A third provision is that the most recent law was the one in force. Why would that be important? The most recent law is the one that is in force. Sophia.
Because the two laws contradicted each other and nothing was happening.
Okay, why would they go with the more recent?
Because it's the law they've decided on.
Yeah, because that's what they've decided on to replace the earlier one. So you wouldn't go back to an earlier law because that's already been replaced by something more recent. So that makes sense, doesn't it? Now, in families, it may work the opposite way. I don't know whether you've ever experienced this or not. How many of you have ever gone to one parent and they do not give in to what you want, and so then you go to the other parent? How many have ever done that? Almost all of you. Do you have a rule in your house about that?
Don't get caught.
Don't get caught. We had a rule in our house. Said whichever parent you go to first, that's the answer you have to go with. So don't even bother asking the other parent.
That's the way I know.
That's the rule you have. When my kids came to me and asked me something, my first question was, have you asked your mother? And if they said yes, then I say, well, you got to do what she says. If they said no, then I would say, okay, I'll ask your mother then. Find out what she wants. But it's different in that situation, because there you're trying to get out of an answer you don't like. But here, the most recent law would be the one that would make sense to go with. Here's another interesting provision. No gold could be buried with a person. Now, why would they have that law? What do you think,
So
Jake?
people weren't digging up the graves.
Yeah, you don't want people digging up graves all the time to get the gold. So they just passed a law. Don't bury any gold, then we won't have the problem. Now, they were allowed to keep their gold fillings, so they had gold fillings in their teeth. But other than that, no gold. Also, it kept gold in circulation instead of being buried and nobody could use it. Well, the plebeians gradually improved their political and social standing. In 287 BC, the plebeian assembly, called the tribal assembly, gained power to pass laws binding upon all, even when contrary to the resolutions of the Senate. So they eventually got to the place where their laws had to be followed by the Senate as well. Okay?
Did they know how to cremate bodies back then or not?
Well, sure. They just put him in a fire. But I think among the Romans that was not done. They had more respect for the body, so they buried them, as far as I know. Now, some other cultures did burn them. Now, as the plebeians and the patricians became equal, as you can see, their plebeians are gaining more and more power all the time until finally they have equal standing with patricians, politically and socially. But what happens is, as plebeians gain more and more political and social standing, many of them gain more wealth as well, and so the dividing line becomes not between patrician and plebeian, but between rich patricians and plebeians and poor patricians and plebeians. So there's still a division, but it becomes rich and poor instead of patrician plebeian. All right, so let's review a little bit. Around 600 BC, the Etruscan kings begin to rule Rome. The Romans overthrew the Etruscan king in 509 BC, and they formed a republic, that is a government in which citizens elect leaders. Not a direct democracy where every citizen votes for everything, but they elect leaders. That is what a republic is when you have representation, people representing the people. And so there's no more king. The republic is what lives on. Long live the republic. Any questions? All right, the rest of the time, you may work on the assignment for tomorrow, which is to read and take notes on pages 80 to 85. Pages 80 to 85. And if you want to work on your test corrections, you may do that as well.